1,000 years ago, we were desperate, and many of us left Arda, Earth, behind. We ventured into the stars in great ark ships. Among these ships were the Zenith and Nadir, each carrying thousands upon thousands of sleeping souls, with one target in sight: the Red Star, Dabaran. The journey would take over a millennia, and generation after generation of ship families would be born, live, and die, caring for and guiding their precious cargo to its final destination. Unbeknownst to those on the colony ships, mankind would make a discovery a few hundred years after their departure that would change everything. What humanity found were ruins from an advanced but long-lost civilization. More importantly, they would also find a network of portals that enabled humanity to travel to distant star systems almost instantaneously. The first cluster of stars was colonized and became what we know as the First Horizon. Ruled by the Emperor, a second horizon was found, colonized by those wishing to escape the repression and control of the Emperor. And finally, a third horizon, one that just so happens to include the star of Dabaran. With the human nature being what it is, tension soon began to rise between the three horizons, and war followed. The third horizon attempted to stay neutral, but the war lasted for hundreds of years, and finally it spread to the third horizon's portals and beyond. The portal wars would devastate the third horizon. Countless of warships were lost in the silence of space. Icons abandoned the people of the third horizon, and the darkness between the stars crept nearer. In every man, woman, and child. In the third horizon, the conclusion of the Portal Wars was marked by a cataclysmic event. The Imperial fleet from the First Horizon had been lured into the remote star system of Odasan. This decisive battle saw the combined fleets of the Third Horizon under the command of the Order of the Pariah, orchestrating a comprehensive and fatal trap. This event not only ended the conflict, but reshaped the landscape of the Third Horizon forever. While the Portal Wars was won, it had come with a heavy cost. The gardens of Odasan were destroyed, as were most of the fleets of the factions. The connection to the other horizons were also broken, and the people of the Third Horizon started to turn inward, building walls, isolating themselves. For over 100 years, the darkness crept nearer, and a great silence fell over the Third Horizon. In this age of declinement, where mistrust and malice was sown between the different star systems in the horizon, the old agreements, the old treaties, was forgotten. 66 Cyclades ago, everything changed. A huge ship, the Zenith, finally arrived at the Red Star of Dabaran. Calling themselves the Zenithians, they brought knowledge and grand ambition, eventually settling above the planet of Kua and converting their ship into the grand space station today known as Coriolis. The Industrian Zenithians brought back trade and re-established the Third Horizon's portals. The Council of Faction was created on the space station Coriolis, which became the power center of the Third Horizon, where different factions could meet and trade would once again flow in the Third Horizon. We hoped for our period of prosperous and peace, but we were mistaken. One Cyclade ago, from the depths of the gas giant scene, it appeared 5 emissaries. These strange ghosts had inhabited bodies from a group of deep space technicians from Foundation Station 7. These technicians had been given the honor of becoming vessels of these emissaries. The emissaries claimed to be representation of the icons themselves, the higher beings worshipped by the first-come civilizations and the Zenithians alike. When the emissaries arrived to the Third Horizon, an illness started to spread. People from all over the Third Horizon systems suddenly started to change. Minds twisting, rampant madness. But worst of all, mystical powers appeared. These mystical powers were suddenly manifesting at random. From prince to beggar, first come to Zenithians. Anyone could suddenly fall victim to this illness. Fear stroked the heart of man for these uncontrolled powers. Persecution started, often ended in murder. So the mystics had to go into hiding. The 61st cycle of the Coriolis station, the segment of the Faceless One. Only days remain until the Cyclade, the day when the people of the Third Horizon celebrate the end of one cycle and the beginning of another. It also happens to be the anniversary of the arrival of the 5 emissaries. Well, there were 5. Now, there is only 4. One of them, the messenger, was taken, seemingly by the order of the pariah, and then brutally murdered. It happened in the Sultra marshes, on the planet Kua, and you saw them just before they died. They showed you visions of a different world, warning you about the arrival of the white butterfly. The old enemy, attempting to break through the portals, the barricade between the Third Horizon and the growing darkness.
You had walked the path to that fateful point together with your crew. The technician Danan Abdul Hamid, nicknamed Pig, the pilot Carlos Salah, and the captain Farouk Al-Jabur. The crew of the Alkamar Alamar, the Red Moon. You had been part of the rescue mission to save the Tsubari mining colony in Tawan. The mission was a disaster, with the Legion destroyer Safira lost, and the converted passenger liner Ghazali that you were on drifting helplessly towards the Hamura star. It wasn't easy, but you were able to escape the Ghazali on the Red Moon, recovering the ship Jin Suleiman and the black box of the Ghazali, the Emerald Disc. You also saved many lives, although you weren't able to recover the precious cargo that you were supposed to get to your patron Al-Khalim. Fortunately, the Emerald Disc ended up netting you a pretty substantial payment from the consortium that helped smooth things over with your patron. The coming segments then saw you attempting to smuggle contraband to the Quadrant of the Pillars, but failing and getting imprisoned in the Ordana system. After escaping from this prison and murdering a bounty hunter on your tail, your patron Al-Halim finally lost his patience and tried to have you forcibly retired. Not accepting your journey to end in this way, you broke into the Foundation's infoteca on the Coriolis station and made yourselves the legal owners of the Red Moon. This was when Carlo found that his sister, Aisha, had gone missing, and that there were people looking for her. Following her tracks, you learned that she was actually a mystic, and that she'd been taken to icons nowhere by powers aligned with the Order of the Pariah. She had been a follower of your Captain Farouk, and he too was a mystic, something he had kept hidden from you. The same forces seemed to have been the ones to take the emissary on Coriolis as well. Recruited and guided by Judicator Akuba Kosha and her mysterious courtesan Apion, you investigated the living spaces of the emissary, finding evidence pointing to the Order of the Pariah having been behind the abduction, as well as a curious visit before the abduction by the Zenithian hegemony's ambassador Johar Khazar. You followed the tracks of the abductors to the bowels of the Coriolis station, the cellar. Here you came across the slumber queen Almeida, whose people were faring poorly because of the competition of a group of enterprising Skavara. The slumber queen asked you to kill the Skavara in return for a guide that could take you to the emissary's kidnappers, and you accepted. However, in actually meeting the Skavara that you were supposed to kill, she in turn convinced you to spare her and her people in return for them guiding you instead. Wanting to avoid bloodshed, you accepted and broke the deal with the slumber queen. What would become of the starving slummers that you had promised to help remains unknown. The Skavara guide took you through the cellar's labyrinth, past a mad poet, and saved you from being devoured by the fabled beast that inhabited the labyrinth. Finally, you were led to the real sanatorium, the base that the Order of the Pariah strike team had set up and from where they were transporting captured mystics and slaves to the planet below. A firefight erupted, and as Judicator Kosha's gunships eradicated the Order's strike team, you were able to hop into an escape pod with a pre-programmed course for Kua, the planet that Coriolis is orbiting, before the entire base was destroyed by a massive explosion. Having landed in the jungles of Kua, the crew, and a young boy Pig had rescued, followed the mercenaries sent to recover the stasis beds containing the mystics and slaves sent from the station. The trek through the jungles was hard, but the crew finally arrived in the syndicate-controlled junk town of Bay Basin. The town was on edge, and hostilities near to break out between the town's de facto leader, Rakim Birbasil of the syndicate, and representatives of the oppressed mine workers who lived in the town. While Carlo and Farouk searched for the human shipments, Pig was contacted by their old patron Al-Halim, whom Pig had great respect and love for, who promised that all would be forgiven if they would help create chaos in the town by encouraging the workers to violently rise up against their oppressor. Pig did as they were asked, and just as the rebels were about to prevail, ships belonging to Al-Halim swooped in to crush them and to save poor Rakim Birbasil, thereby cementing Al-Halim's standing within the syndicate. The crew boarded a river barge that was fleeing the town and found themselves by the foot of the monolith in Little Algol, still on the tail of the human traffickers that had taken Carlo's sister. The tracks led to the estate of a Leod Dol Khazar, a local crime lord that had seemingly been suddenly elevated by the Zenithian hegemony and who was celebrating the betrothal of his son to the fifth daughter of the Zenithian Dinrama family. Infiltrating the betrothal festivities with Judicator Kosha and finding the final destination of the human cargo, the crew found themselves in the middle of an assassination attempt on Leod Dol Khazar. This was an attempt that was successful and that ended with explosives going off and seemingly killing a large number of guests. Judicator Kosha was clear that this too was the work of the Order of the Pariah, perhaps trying to tie up loose ends and destroy evidence of Leod's part in their human trafficking scheme. This was something that bothered Carlo greatly, as he had seen his own family, the Zenones, attending the party. For yes, Carlos Salah is not who he has said that he was, but this was not yet known to anyone in the crew but him. With no time to spare, the crew and Judicator Kosha then headed for the Sultra Marshes and the abandoned Sulmahala Palace, where the Order of the Pariah had set up a base. Having successfully shut down the base's jamming equipment, the Judicator called down a drone swarm that destroyed the Order's strike force. After seeing a strange and highly advanced butterfly-shaped ship seemingly escaping the planet, the crew then reached the ruined hospital building to which the emissary and Carlo's sister had been taken. Here, the emissary spoke to them, and spoke of the threat to the Third Horizon, of the white butterfly trying to break through. Their time was cut short, however, as the dark between the stars manifested in the emissary's body, and a great shadow tried to kill the crew. Their weapons seemingly useless against this monstrosity, Farouk used his mystical powers and sang a song that the resonance of the emissary had taught him. It destroyed the shadow, who then was no more, but neither was Farouk. Pig and Carlo found Carlo's sister in the ruined hospital, and Pig, who had been a medic in the Uharan Wars, saved her life, finally getting to see the insides of a mystic and to be close to the icons in the way that they had always desired. The journey to find the lost emissary ended there. Pig and the little boy they had saved, and Carlo carrying his unconscious sister, approaching the Red Moon.
Their ship. Their home. This is where we begin. The last Cyclade.